We are living in an era of seismic challenges. Our global food system faces never-before-seen stresses, from the climate crisis, population growth, and fractured supply chains. But might these shocks to our system actually be a catalyst for positive change? This is just so incredible. I'm on a journey to witness for myself. Oh, look at this! How farmers, scientists, and innovators are radically reimagining how we grow our food and produce it. I feel like I'm in a space station and super perfect lettuce has just magically appeared from the heavens. It's a quest to meet the greatest challenges that are facing humanity.
We have to wake up and we have to feed the world. That's a big job.
And create a new and better food future. This episode, you are what your food eats. If we pay more attention to what we feed our food, from the fertility in our soil.
What we're trying to do is break apart more what's already in our soil instead of constantly adding more to the soil.
To the nutrients in our plants.
Within a week, the farmers saw increase in terms of milk.
Can we transform the quality of what ends up on our plates?
The higher the organic matter, the higher the nutrient density, the better it is then for the end consumer.
We all know the adage, you are what you eat. How healthy eating and nutritious food results in us being healthy, well-nourished humans. But maintaining the nutrient quality of our food throughout a complex food supply chain is far from a straightforward task. So many farmers and scientists have begun to look at the very start of the chain to see if we improve what and how we feed our food, whether we can make healthier, more nutrient-rich ingredients that can in turn give us the nourishment we need. Improving the quality of their crops is something that all farmers strive for. But trying to do that at the same time as being a responsible custodian for the wider environment often involves a trade-off. But that's why I'm excited to meet a farmer who thinks he can do both, thanks to a really clever bit of innovation. I'm in Ohio, in the USA, to meet a farmer who believes that feeding our food begins with the soil itself. And he's got a lot of plants to feed on his 8,000-acre corn and soy farm. Good morning, Corey.
Hey, good morning.
I've driven through pretty much 3 hours of unbroken cornfields to get here, so if anyone knows how to grow it, it's going to be you.
I will give it my best shot.
And we're off. Good, healthy soil contains billions of microorganisms, including things like bacteria and fungi, which can play a vital role in the nourishment of plants. But we now know that some forms of intensive farming can degrade soil quality and kill these helpful organisms.
So what we're really trying to focus on is soil health. So once you get your soil health aspect of it down, it will translate into plant health.
So conventionally, a lot of modern agriculture, at least in decades past, treated the soil almost just like a substrate. It's what holds the water and nutrients that plants grow in. But really, all you need to do is add synthetic fertilizer for that to happen. What you're doing is really quite different.
Correct. So we're still using synthetic fertilizer, but we're using less and less, about 25% less.
In the place of synthetic fertilizers, Corey's using a new innovation in farming known as biological inoculants. It's the name given to a mixture of microscopic live bacteria and fungi that's added to a plant's growth cycle to help it access better nutrients from the soil as it grows. So what is it that these biologicals do, which means you can replace the addition of synthetic fertilizers?
When you were dealing with phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, the metal bond is so strong, it doesn't want to release that nutrients to the root of that plant. So when we can put live organisms in the soil, it's actually going to eat that, break that bond, poop it back out, and then it's readily available to that plant. That plant can now find it. It's like, oh, there you are. What we're trying to do is break apart more what's already in our soil instead of constantly adding more to the soil.
Each year, Corey trials between 15 and 20 different inoculants to get the perfect balance of soil health and plant growth. But as a skeptical botanist, I want to see just what a difference they're making with my own eyes.
So what we're going to do, we're going to walk out into the field here. The reason why, if you look at this here that we're looking at, it's had nothing but sunlight its whole life.
So right in the center of the field, you have more generic growing conditions. So taking a sample there will give you a much more accurate sample than right here where it's basking in sun all on one perfect side.
Correct.
It's so dense. Like, I can't believe anyone is able to go through this. This is not like it's like in the films.
No, it's not.
You go ahead.
All right.
We don't have a machete. How are we going to do this? Wow, it is tight.
Come over this way.
You pick a good one.
Let's go over that way.
Okay. First up, Corey's choosing a plant that's been treated normally, but which has had a 25% reduction in fertilizer applied to it.
All right, we'll dig this up here.
Aha.
Let's go over to the trial.
Okay. Next, a plant that's also had a reduction in fertilizer, but this time has had the addition of bacteria and fungi to its growing cycle to aid better growth. Plant number 2.
All right.
Right.
I think we're ready to go out and take a look at it now.
Yeah. Now, what are we comparing? What parameters would you use to compare good versus bad growing corn plants?
First thing I noticed right off the bat is this is a healthier corn plant.
Yes.
It's got a darker green. It's got more chlorophyll moving through it. Now we can look at the root size difference. You can see by the size of this root mass, it has a large area to go find food. And then, so now we're going to look at the ear placement. You can see where mine picked an entire node higher to place the ear. So that tells me that this plant was happier when it was doing ear selection.
And look at the ear size on that as well.
Let's look and see.
Okay.
You can just pull it off there.
Okay.
Now we'll shuck it and see what we have. So if you look at the husk cover.
Okay.
See how mine is still green?
Yes.
And yours is brown?
Yes.
Yours is already starting to give up. Mine's going to stay alive longer to build more starches, which adds heavier test weight, adds better quality grain.
Yeah, so you can even see, not only is yours much bigger, it's filled in right to the edge, whereas mine, they get progressively smaller right to the tip here.
So that shows your plant was not able to handle stress as well as the plant that I was carrying.
I feel very disappointed that this is mine now. Putting my disappointment aside, I'm keen to find out just how these beneficial microorganisms get into the ground in the first place. John, I hear this is all the magic happens.
I guess you could say that.
What have we got here?
Oh, we've got a tote full of soybeans here.
Oh, wow. This is enormous. And this goes all the way down to the ground.
Absolutely it does. These are completely untreated. This is just the same as what came out of the combine when we harvested last fall.
So this is basically the secret sauce. This is how you take your raw ingredient of a whole bunch of untreated seeds and then you apply the inoculant. You apply life to them.
Correct.
To make sure each future corn plant has access to these helpful microbes, Corey and his team are applying them directly to each and every seed.
James, you want to go ahead and pull that door open?
Okay, we'll see.
Get up there and do your job before you get fired. Shut the door.
I know. Right, okay. Oh, wow. Once 40 acres of seeds are in place, a powder form of microscopic mycorrhiza are added to a water solution.
Here we go. We're going to pull this. See the spray started?
Oh,
now I'm going to start it for the seed. It's spraying on both sides of this machine at the same time so that we're getting even coating.
Yeah, it's incredibly simple. It's almost like you've just got a spray gun and then they're dropping seeds on top of it. The mist that's going on is incredibly fine in a really, really thin layer, and it's dealing with a phenomenal amount of seeds.
Absolutely.
And in the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of seeds are coated in a mixture of live bacteria and fungi. Oh, look at that. So you can see a very subtle pink fleck, so just so you can differentiate. That's
Right.
enormous. How long did that take?
We can treat a box from start to finish in about 5 minutes.
So now this is all inoculated, what happens next?
This will go into a seed tender and it'll load into the planter and it'll go in the ground.
So 40 acres, as far as the eye can see, really, in one application.
Absolutely.
Around the world, farmers are using varied techniques to improve soil health, from adding biological inputs like inoculants or biostimulants, composts and biochars, to improving crop rotations, growing cover crops, and adding animal manure. All of which should mean that our plants are better fed and lead to greater yields and better nourishment for us as the ultimate consumer.
We have to wake up and we have to feed the world. That's a big job.
And I guess this is how you do it. Look at that.
And this is how you do it.
So I want to know how we can do the same with our livestock. What do we feed this vital protein source to make sure they produce dairy rich in minerals and vitamins?
It was quite amazing to see that other countries are benefiting from what we have, and we are not exploiting that grass at all.
And meat packed with protein.
The higher the organic matter, the higher the nutrient density, the better it is then for the end consumer.
Where are you taking me? Right into the undergrowth. We know that eating good quality, healthy food makes for fit and healthy people. But growing food that's rich in the nutrients we need means feeding the food well too. So I want to find out how farmers and scientists are meeting the challenges of producing quality as well as quantity. Having discovered that our soil holds the key to getting the best out of our plants, I want to know how we can get the best out of our livestock. Kenya is the largest cattle milk producer in Africa. But with demand growing, climate change is threatening output. The country's dairy industry is made up of over 1 million smallholder dairies, where 80% of them have fewer than 5 cows. But the grass variety that they've been traditionally fed with is susceptible to pests, diseases, and drought.
You find in most farms they'll keep Friesians, and Friesians is a high-yielding animal. But the milk production on average is still very low. It ranges about 8 to 9 liters per animal per day.
Dr. Donald Jerui is a principal research scientist for the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization.
Friesian can be able to give up to 30, 40, or even 50 liters. The main problem has always been the feed.
Improving the cows' diets would increase the quantity and quality of the milk they produce, an important source of minerals, fats, amino acids, and vitamins for the population.
The only grasses that is available in large numbers that farmers use is mainly Napier. Almost every dairy farmer grows Napier. But Napier is becoming very susceptible to pests and diseases. We began looking at what other countries are doing, and we found that Bracharia is one of the grasses that could solve that problem.
Dr. Jerui and his team discovered the Bracharia grass was successfully being used in Brazil, but its origins were surprisingly close to home.
We know that in South America, they got Bracharia grasses from Eastern Africa way back in the 1940s and 1950s. But we have not exploited the potential of those grasses at all. They are not cultivated, just like we cultivate maize or any other food crop. So it was quite amazing to see that other countries are benefiting from what we have, and we are not exploiting that grass at all.
After repatriating Bracharia to Kenya, trials on different varieties have further developed and are delivering remarkable results.
Within a week, the farmers saw increase in terms of milk.
Ukipatia ng'ombe anaongeza maziwa kama akikuwa anakupatia lita kama 10, ataongeza kama about 15% ya maziwa ambao alikuwa anakupatia.
The new varieties of Bracharia grass are now being distributed amongst Kenya's large network of smallholders. Alongside the yield increase, farmers have also reported higher body weight as well as butter fat and protein content. All good news for human health in the right quantities.
So actualizing our long-term dream of finding a variety that can be a game changer of being able to revolutionize the dairy industry in this country. You can see farmers are gaining, and I can go home happily that I've made a change to someone's life.
If a simple change to what our cattle eat can have such a marked difference on the quality and quantity of the dairy we consume, I want to know if farmers can do the same when it comes to beef. I've travelled to Cornwall in the UK, where a young farmer believes that to get the best quality beef for his cattle requires rethinking how he farms them.
Afternoon, Reese. How's it going?
Not too bad.
Reese Morris and his family have been farming their 200-acre cattle farm for a little over 3 years. And they're not only focused on how much food ends up in the stomachs of their herd, but how changing and managing the entire ecosystem they graze from improves the quality of the meat they produce.
There are a number of studies now that show nutrient density in foods has dropped over the last 50 years significantly. That has been as a result of lower organic matters in the soils, and it's only now that we're realizing the negative impact that can be having on both our health, the animals' health, and the planet as a whole.
Reese believes using what he calls a more naturally balanced whole systems approach to farming not only improves the nutritional richness of the meat he produces, but also the land he farms. A healthier soil produces more nutrient-rich plants for the herd to eat, improving the meat further. It centers around mob grazing.
The idea behind mob grazing is that you give a relatively small area of acreage to cattle at one given time, so anywhere between half an acre and an acre, but you move them frequently.
Okay.
So they constantly got food in front of them, and they've constantly got the ability to graze, but you're not forcing them to overgraze.
So by moving the cows in here, you're essentially mimicking migratory patterns of large herbivores that would come into an area, graze it for a period of time, but then move on. They wouldn't stay there permanently.
So they will naturally, in nature, it naturally mob grazes.
Yes.
So what we're just trying to do here is make sure that you don't force the cattle to go back onto ground that they've already dirty. So it has huge health benefits.
And you can actually really see like all the makeup of this field is really, really different. So is this intentionally sown mix of species here what you call a herbal ley?
That's exactly what they call it, is a herbal ley. We started off with 20 species of seed. Not all of them have taken. We've got chicory here, we've got clover here. We've probably got about 5 or 6 different types of clover,
yeah,
and a number of different grasses here, and they've all got different jobs within the soil.
A herbal ley is great for pollinators and improving soil structure, but the real advantage for Reese is that each different species draws up different nutrients, which the cows then eat, enriching their diet.
The first thing those guys will go to is they'll go straight to the nettle. Now, the stinging nettles have the highest protein content, around 18-20% protein. When the protein content is that high, it's a very good weed for them to be eating.
Yeah.
The mineral content is good. Chicory is a great example of a regenerative plant, breaking up compaction layer, improving soil filtration, driving deep carbon down into the soil, bringing back up water and nutrients and minerals to feed the rest of the plants. The more soil organic matter you have, the more carbon you can store, the more water filtration you can have, the more water capacity there is within the soil, which then equates to higher levels of nutrition within the plants underneath our feet, which the cattle graze. Then that has the knock-on effect of increasing the nutrition density of the meat that we produce. The higher the organic matter, the higher the nutrient density, the better it is then for the end consumer.
And alongside the leys, Reese is allowing them to graze through his woodland too. It's an ancient practice known as silvopasture and provides them with access to fruits, nuts, tree and leaf fodder.
Reese, where are you taking me? Right into the undergrowth. So the whole thing is forage. We tend to think about forests as kind of conserved, pristine places that we keep apart, and meadowlands as what we browse cows on. But you're using both as areas for food for cows.
That's right. Grass has been designed over hundreds of thousands of years to be grazed, but so have trees. When you turn the cattle in here, they'll come through, they'll strip the leaves off the willow.
Yeah.
They'll eat the sycamore, the beech leaves.
Once you start including this, the number of species they're eating doubles easily.
Easily. And they choose what they need.
So it's not just a diversity of grassland species you're growing, it's also a diversity of grazing, which allows not a single plant to be really, really hit. They're all hit in different ways.
And hit in the way that they're designed.
And how does this symbiotic relationship affect the final product?
Animals that have been born and raised on the pasture-fed system on this ground, we have seen a marked improvement in what I would call the quality of taste in our product, and our customers have relayed that back to us. Before now, I would have quite happily eaten 500-600 gram steak on my own. Now, the cattle that have come through the system fully, a 600 gram steak will now feed my wife, myself, and our 2 children. So rather than not eating meat at all, what we need to be doing is eating better quality meat, but smaller portions of it. And if this nutrient density helps us do that, then that's only going to be a benefit.
By embracing historic grazing practices, combined with a modern understanding of the ecosystem, Reese is hoping to create a biochemically rich pastoral system that can produce a higher quality and nutritious product more sustainably. And if we are what our food eats, that sounds like a sensible ambition to me.
In the future, we're going to have to think more carefully, not just about what we eat, but what our food eats. And that's not only important because of human health, but because we're going to need to produce more food with fewer inputs in a more sustainable way if we're going to feed a growing population.